Hi, welcome to this channel on magnetic energy, technology, principles, applications. This video is about magnetic energy and the toroidal dynamics, toroidal field dynamics, and as I like to incorrectly call it, toroidal. I just think that sounds better. I don't know why. So this is highly unconventional information, and there are some parallels to the classic model with this magnetic energy, magnetic etheric model of the universe. And I mean, you could say part of it is if you think of like protons, neutrons, and electrons, and you have a neutral charge and then a positive and negative charge. We kind of have those same manifestations of charge, if you will, but some of the differences are we are always working with an open system. So any charges, if you want to call them that, are due to the inflow and outflow of energy. They're due to vortices. They're due to compression of the energy into a molecular structure system or an energetic structure system. So and then as well, the neutral, I know there's a lot of like debate about neutrons and neutrinos and neutral type of energies around the universe and how bombarded we are and how neutrons are, so dangerous, and there's so much controversy about neutrons. But the thing is, with the neutral energy, and I'll just call it neutral energy, and you can put all those other labels on it. In this model, it's the predominant energy of the universe, and that's partly because, like Tesla used to say, the ether, if you want to call it that, or the magnetic energy that we're all swimming in at all times, we're all in it, is neutral by nature. And so because of that, it makes this whole universe predominantly neutral, and then the manifestations that we see like in the physical world and all that have these polarized, if you want to, or charged signatures that create like the molecular structures that then manifest as what we see as matter in everyday life. Now so if you want to look at, just in case you're not familiar with, this is just a picture of a torus, but I'm really talking about toroidal fields. But you get the idea, though, of the donut and the energy flowing in and out of it. And you can kind of see the vortice of energy going in and then out of that. Now, this particular image would be like a theoretical image. So like this wouldn't necessarily exist in nature. In the magnetic model, we would say like this is almost like perfectly neutral. So like the inflow and outflow equal each other, and then that produces what we would call a neutral manifestation of a toroidal field. And these types of like neutral fields exist everywhere from a deep subatomic level all the way up to really galactic and even a universal level. In this model, this would be the basic shape of the universe that we live in. And so the reason I would say that this is only theoretical is because as far as we know and as far as we've been told, there's never really, at least in our knowable universe, a 100% neutral manifestation of anything. And so there would be all kinds of energetic signatures, resonant signatures, elemental signatures, things that are influencing that. So let's talk just for a second about some of the dynamics of the toroidal field, like in this magnetic model. Now, so the inflow and outflow, like monitoring that and basically the volume of that energy is really critical. The pulse rate of the toroidal field, or the toroidal field, is really critical because the pulse rate can determine so much of what it's doing, like what elements it's interacting in, where it's moving to, how it's what's happening with the dynamics of it. Of course, the elemental or energetic or resonant signatures, if you want to call it, would be embedded throughout the structure of this. Now, this would be an inflow, outflow of energy and a counter-rotating. So it would basically be a complete balance of energy, so counter-rotating fields that are around that. And now they're around this toroidal field in this magnetic model, you would have points of incursion and excursion of other energies that are coming into the system. So like if you had what we might consider like a positive or negative energy connecting to this, then those vortices of energy would contribute to this. Now, if you think of etheric energy as predominantly neutral, and it's kind of in a hyperdimensional state, so it's always just instantly blinking in and out of our existence, and so it's like kind of like that 0 point energy or the etheric model where we are, everything in our system is constantly dependent on neutral energy coming in and out of the system, taking on, helping those polarities and providing those polarities with the flow of energy, and then converting back to neutral. Now, in a magnetic energy unit, we are looking to establish relatively neutral pulsing magnetic fields because that allows us to attract an unlimited amount of etheric energy that then we can use and convert to polarities and put to work and then allow it to go back into the system. So it's like we're creating like a natural process that you already see in nature, but we're just simply ramping it up and creating much stronger pulses and a much higher volume of energy than like you would have in, say, like a rock or something. So the neutral, a neutral manifestation that has this like contiguous field, so there's a really perfectly balanced energy, so the toroidal field really is fully balanced, whereas if something's polarized, you might have like a vortex of energy, and then the outflow of that might be different in size, or like, so the vortices don't perfectly match up, if you will, so they can be like, you wouldn't say they're unbalanced necessarily unless there's something contaminating the system like pollution, but you would say that they're not perfectly matched up like in size, strength, speed, pulse rate, and all that, and that allows them to maintain like something that's unique in the system. Now, please keep in mind that there are toroidal fields that occur in every level of nature, and they're all slightly different because of the resonant signatures that happen, and they're always in motion, they're always changing, so energy is always flowing in and out of the system. And then at the subatomic level, we're talking about energy that goes, in this model at least, to a nearly infinitely deep level, like much smaller than even what scientists have identified as even theoretical and mathematical, like the smallest thing in the universe. It's really, you can't really put a size on how small or how infinitely deep this energy goes, because as soon as you go to that level, it's already at a million times deeper than that, to a nearly infinite level, because of the way the energy is set up. There's no like single tiny small building block, if you will, of the universe. It's energy that can go at a nearly infinitely small level up to a nearly infinitely large level, depending on like how, and a nearly infinitely fast level, which is crazy because the energy travels at a near infinite velocity. It's kind of like quantum mechanics, where there's really no delay between anything that's being quantumly entangled or being attracted to another destination. This is a lot of rambling, and I hope some of it's making sense. I don't even think it's making sense for me. So anyway, it's something that's really difficult to describe, because we're talking about like what would be the energetic structures or the molecular structures that are kind of make up our physical universe. And so we're talking about a lot of interconnecting vortices, a lot of toroidal fields, like neutral toroidal fields that get formed, but at the same time we're talking about a continuous influx of energy into every system from that kind of hyperdimensional level. And so, and all of that neutral energy at that hyperdimensional level is also encoded. So the thing is, the reason why This, like, if this was a perfectly neutral energy, the only thing that it would attract to would be another perfectly neutral energy. And so that may be like a theoretical construct, but in practical application for like our physical universe, that's not really realistic. So this, like, say if this was a tiny bit of neutral energy that's at the etheric level. Okay, let's just imagine, for example, inside of it, going to a nearly infinitely deep level, would be resonant signatures or encodings of all kinds of, like, just slight encodings. And you could even say, well, it's even if it's like 1 or 2%, or it doesn't matter. It's a small percentage of the overall energy system of this neutral, like this neutral component of energy. So any of those little molecular structures provide the ability to attract this, for this to get attracted into a system like a tree or a fish or a rock or a human or a planetary system, whatever it is. All those encodings allow that to happen. And so as this moves, like, let's say from an interdimensional level into something that we would see in our physical universe, and it could just be any object that you can imagine that would be all natural. So let's not talk about like anything being contaminated by pollution or human intervention. But let's say it moves into that system based on, it has a small molecular encoding structure, like it's at a subatomic level. So we're talking about encoding, like if you want to reference this classic model, neutrons, protons, electrons, and all that. We're talking about subatomic encoding of all of those structures. And so that gives it the ability to go to that destination and attach what conventional science would say is like a north attaching to a south, but we would say it's an inflow of energy or an outflow of energy connecting to an inflow of energy, like, so those two vortices connecting. Now, as soon as that happens, now this is a little crazy, but as soon as it goes into that system and it makes that connection and expresses that like subatomic molecular structure and provides like that energy flow, and this is happening at a very fast rate, by the way, like it's like at nearly infinite velocity. But as soon as it makes that expression and that connection, the next encoding that's like kind of, it's like on deck. Okay, so that was the batter. Now we've got the next encoding is on deck. That next encoding comes into play, and that becomes like the driving attraction force for this to go to its next system, if that makes sense. Now its next system could be like, let's say it enters into like a human body. It may perform a function that is happening, we're talking like at a quantum level, like very small level. So it's doing something, it's like providing energy to those subatomic elements or those subatomic structures that are keeping them going. And then the batter that's on deck comes up to bat. It goes off to a next system in the body, it could go to the next system in the body, and then whatever else is on deck, it will be back into the etheric realm and go on to another system. So that could go to somewhere else on our planet, it could go outside of our planet, it could go anywhere. And whatever has taken place, this is crazy, whatever has taken place within this system inside the human body is also encoded or stored as information that influences how it performs at its next destination. So it's, if you want to imagine, like, if you want to think like, wow, the universe that we live in is a simulation. If you want to call it that, or like they say there's intelligent design behind it, everything that is flowing through us not only has the encoding of the experience of whatever path that it's taken as it goes back to source, but as it's coming from source to get to us at hyperdimensional level, goes into our dimension, goes back into a higher dimension, goes to all these gazillion destinations. It has encoding that guides it to its next destination in every single step of the way, and then also picks up a track record of everything it's done. So it's almost like the perfect way of monitoring everything that occurs from a distance, if you could imagine that. So like if we had that, and we will have this ability, maybe not to that extent, but even to a fairly significant extent with magnetic technology, where we can send out a signal that we have encoded to go, like, say for example, look at another solar system or planet, and that energy feeds through that and it comes back to us with all the messages encoding on what's going on, so we get a full representation of what's happening on that planet in terms of how, if the air is breathable, what the water content is, what the life is like, all of those things. So you get this like incredibly detailed monitoring of another system at a distance, and you get that instantaneously because it moves at a nearly infinite velocity. And that's kind of like how our whole universe is working. It's this infinite level of coding. So I mean, there's really no end to how many stops, if you want to call it that, stops in the physical universe an interdimensional, relatively neutral bit of energy can take. And so the reason like that we like the magnetic units is unlike conventional electrical technology, they will form these neutral fields, and they build upon each other. So they expand, and pretty soon you've got the entire unit is encompassed with a relatively neutral pulsing toroidal field that has all kinds of educational or informative resonant signatures that are taking place in it, that are based on the elements that are found inside the unit and that are with the unit, based on the draw from the ionosphere and the connection to our planet and everything. So all of that's encoded in that field, and then that allows that field to really just continuously attract a tremendous amount of neutral energy that then, of course, we can use to run our society and much, much more. So the toroidal field is so fundamental to this model and to the magnetic units, and it's predominantly a neutral energy that produces a beautiful toroidal field in this model. Because if you have polarizations and all that, like I said, the vortices are like, they don't necessarily match up. It looks, it doesn't have that perfect flow, and it's very limited in its application, if that makes sense. So as soon as you polarize the energy with any type of environmental influence or elemental influence, you've limited essentially what that energy source can do. That's partly why we say like neutral flowing magnetic current, which is ionically based, but it has predominantly like neutral toroidal energy, like if you want to say balls of energy in it, however you want to look at it, but neutral energy components in it. It is 1,000,000 times more versatile than electricity. So and it provides you with like this ability to formulate, reformulate, deformulate matter, have anti-gravity, have all these things, because it's predominantly neutral. We can give it 1,000,000 different things to do, as much as you can possibly imagine, which is unlike electricity. Electricity does not contain beautiful neutral pulsing magnetic toroidal fields. It just does not contain those. And so wow, that was some really serious rambling. Please send in questions, and I'll do my best to answer them and try to keep talking about this and how critical this is. This shape is kind of like the future of power for humanity and beyond, and it's so representative of what's happening in our universe and our bodies and everything at all times. And so with that said, I will see you next time.